Et ensemble, on a préparé le terrain pour une relance économique forte. A big shout out as well to two strong voices for here in Mississauga. Ickwinder, our next Liberal MP for right here in Mississauga, Malton, with an extraordinary, touching, but very, very Canadian story of getting to this point. And I look forward to seeing everything you're going to be able to accomplish for Mississauga, Malton, and for the country in the coming years. And of course, Omar Al-Ghabra, a leader not just in this community, but as Minister of Transport in keeping Canadians safe. Omar, whether by standing up for what people in Mississauga need to weather this storm, or for workers in the industry, you've been leading the way forward. As always, thank you, my friend. The last 18 months have been tough. And I know we're all looking forward to getting back to the things we love. Having your kids in school with their friends, reopening your restaurant to full capacity, and yes, taking a vacation with your family. We can get there. And the way we do is by finishing the fight against COVID-19 for good. Au moment où on se parle, les conseils de santé publique sont clairs. C'est mieux de ne pas prendre de vacances à l'étranger. Mais je sais qu'on a tous hâte de visiter nos amis, notre famille, de voyager d'un bout à l'autre de notre grand pays et, pourquoi pas, d'aller prendre un peu de soleil quand le froid va revenir. L'hiver dernier, on a dû prendre des décisions difficiles et travailler avec des compagnies comme Sunwing pour suspendre les vols vers l'étranger. C'était la bonne chose à faire pour protéger les gens. Mais en ce moment-là, et depuis, vous avez fait votre part. You've gotten vaccinated. And for those who haven't, make sure you do. You've worn your mask. You stayed home. You canceled your plans. And now, you want to get back to what makes you happy and know that you're not at risk and that your kids are not at risk as you do so. Canadians stepped up. They did the right things. They made those sacrifices. They held strong for each other. And we're getting closer to the time where all that hard work and sacrifice will come to fruition. But in the last year and a half, it's been hard for Canadians to know what's safe and what's not. Clearly, it's a good idea to wear a mask in a busy place. It's the right thing to do to get your vaccine. What about the things we love that we haven't been able to do for a while? Well, when it comes to travel, we have a plan to make sure you don't have to wonder about the risks. We'll ensure that everyone 12 or older on a plane or train is fully vaccinated. So if you get on a plane like the one behind me today, you won't have to worry if the person beside you or across the aisle from your daughter has had both doses. You know they have. And with an airline like Sunwing, which has shown leadership on vaccination for all employees, you'll be covered when the staff come around to help with tickets or baggage too. You won't have to wonder about the risks. Now, Aaron O'Toole has said he would rip up this commitment on vaccines. I think Canadians know that's precisely the wrong choice at the wrong time. Think about it for a second. Even as anti-vaxxers harass frontline healthcare workers, Aaron O'Toole still won't even make sure his own candidates are vaccinated. And in fact, on healthcare workers, I want to say this. Do you remember when we were all going out every day to bang on pots and pans to show support for our extraordinary heroes on those front lines, to support them? Those frontline healthcare workers who were the only ones standing between us and the virus in those early days, working long hours, sharing stories of exhaustion and despair and hope at the same time. They inspired us to be there for each other as Canadians, to step up for each other the way they were fighting for us every day at a time where we didn't have vaccines. Well, now they need our help. Because even as they deal with rising cases in unvaccinated people, they're surrounded and being protested and being harassed and hassled and blocked by anti-vaxxers who are harassing them at the hospitals in BC and Ontario and right across the country. They need Canadians to come together once again in support of them, to defend our frontline heroes, to support science, and above all, to get vaccinated. And as leaders, we need to do everything we can. Erin O'Toole, and yes, Yves-François Blanchet too, say they respect the choice of anti-vaxxers. Well, you know what? I respect yours. You've worked too hard. We're too close to the finish line to let the Conservative Party take us backwards to more lockdowns and to a slower economic recovery for everyone. Ask people working for an airline like Sunwing or anyone who owns a family-run restaurant, and they'll tell you that people won't show up if they don't feel safe. And that's not good for business. It just goes to show that vaccines don't only matter because they protect you. They also matter because they get our economy on track to rebuild. Alors c'est vraiment important de continuer d'aller de l'avant avec les vaccins. La position de M. O'Toole, c'est pas seulement mauvais pour vous et votre famille, c'est mauvais pour l'économie. Here in Ontario, you've made it clear that you want a proof of vaccination system to keep you safe and to get everyone back to better days faster. Well, I'm right there with you. We'll even foot the bill for provinces and territories to roll out strong vaccination-proof programs, because that's real leadership, and that makes a real difference. It's no coincidence that right after we made that commitment, Premier Ford finally stepped up. And I think we all know that that wouldn't have happened with Erin O'Toole sitting across the table from Doug Ford. What Mr. O'Toole is doing isn't leadership. He's applying that same logic, one that's beholden to special interest groups, to his other choices as well, not just vaccines. Promising the gun lobby to make assault weapons legal again, and then misleading Canadians about his position. Allowing his MPs to introduce anti-choice legislation and standing by while over 80 members of his caucus restrict a woman's voice to choose. Ripping up a $10 a day childcare agreements that we've signed right across the country. None of that is leadership. And none of it will help us either finish the fight against COVID-19 or build a better Canada. Mes amis, cette élection est très importante. On a un vrai plan, ambitieux et positif, et on est prêt à le mettre en œuvre dès maintenant. On Wednesday, I laid out our plan to move forward for everyone on health, on housing, on childcare, on climate. We'll keep standing up on vaccines for travel, just like we'll make sure you can find a family doctor. We'll make owning a home more affordable. We'll keep fighting for $10 a day childcare, including here in Ontario, so that kids can get the best start, parents can better balance work and family, and our economy comes roaring back as strongly as possible. And we'll take real climate action. The consensus is clear. From economists like Mark Jacquard to environmentalists like Andrew Weaver, we have the best plan on climate and on jobs. On va continuer de prendre des mesures concrètes pour lutter contre les changements climatiques et pour créer des bons emplois pour les années à venir. On va vous aider à traverser cette crise et on va rebâtir un Canada encore plus fort. Il faut en finir avec la pandémie une bonne fois pour toutes. Et pour ça, ça prend du vrai leadership. Nous, on va s'assurer que tout le monde qui prend un train ou un avion soit vacciné. On va prendre des mesures comme celle-là parce qu'on veut que vous soyez capable de recommencer à faire les activités que vous aimez et parce que ça va faire croître notre économie. On a fait beaucoup de chemin ensemble et je sais qu'on peut aller encore plus loin. On a une équipe expérimentée et on veut en faire encore plus pour être à la hauteur de vos ambitions. Mes amis, on est prêts à continuer d'avancer. The choice Canadians have to make in this election will take us through not just the next few years, but the next few decades. They matter. And I'm ready for the hard work. I'm ready for the hope. I'm ready to move forward for everyone. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Trudeau. We'll start the question period for 20 minutes. One question, one follow-up. Une question, une sous-question, starting with CBC.
Mr. Trudeau, Travis Damraj, CBC News. Thanks for taking our questions this morning. You say the process was rigorous to clear Raj Saini, but the process was that Saini engaged an HR consultant to do the workplace assessment, and that did not include interviewing the complainant. How is that rigorous, and can you say with absolute certainty that you know the multiple allegations against Mr. Saini to be false?
I think Canadians know that we have always acted decisively on showing that we don't tolerate sexual misconduct or harassment. Not only that, we acted to put in place much stronger, more rigorous processes in Parliament, within our party, and within organizations across the country. We will always make sure that we are standing up for people's rights and supports for them as they come forward to be heard, to make sure that there is a process for them to follow. We will make sure that that process is rigorously and independently followed. Okay. Les gens savent très bien que j'ai toujours agi pour démontrer mon intolérance pour l'harcèlement et l'intimidation. Non seulement ai-je agi dans différents cas au fil des années, mais j'ai agi pour transformer et améliorer les processus à l'intérieur du Parlement, à l'intérieur de nos partis, à l'intérieur des lieux de travail à travers le pays. Oui, il reste encore plus à faire, mais on va toujours s'assurer qu'on est là pour écouter et entendre ceux qui s'avancent avec des préoccupations ou des histoires d'actes inacceptables. Et on va s'assurer qu'il y ait un processus indépendant et rigoureux par lequel ils vont pouvoir passer.
Following up.
Mr. Trudeau, your answer didn't address the core of the question, but I do want to ask you about another subject. In 2015 and 2019, your platform pledged to lift the blood donation ban on men who have sex with men. That promise is absent from this platform, and Marcy Ian, your candidate in Toronto Centre, said just yesterday, quote, "I'm not even going to begin to defend this." If you are reelected, will you lift the ban, and if so, when?
We have said consistently, you're right, back since 2015, that the ban on blood donation, on giving blood for men who have sex with men, is unacceptable, discriminatory, and wrong. We made a commitment in 2015 to lift it. And we turned to Independent Blood Services Canada to say, okay, you need to get rid of that. And they said, we had all our research and funding cut by the previous Conservative government, so we don't have the data based on which to make that decision. So we funded the data. We funded the research they needed to make that decision, and we watched that decision go down from 5 years to 1 year to 3 months. And we are very, very hopeful, and we expect Canadian Blood Services to announce soon that that ban, the MSM blood ban, will be lifted shortly. It is something that we are working on, continue to work on, and something that we will ensure happens.